Hey everybody, it's Emily the Crazy Worm Lady. I'm here today looking at our European Nightcrawler bin, and we were attempting to bait out some of these worms, and it actually does look like I have some worms in here. I wasn't sure. Some people had commented they didn't think there were enough holes, but looks like I have a decent number of worms. I'm going to actually grab a small bin and transfer these worms into that, and then we'll turn up the bedding and see what it looks like. So this is a 3-gallon tote I have that I was running an experiment in before. I mostly cleared it out, but it's fine if there's a little bit of castings left over. But I'm going to take the contents of this here, and I'm going to dump it into this bin. And there's actually a decent number of worms. I mean, I would have hoped for a little bit more, but I'm relatively pleased with this. Let's see. It at least did something. Minimal, actually, now that I'm looking at it, but it did something. There are some worms in here. But I also put in some watermelon the other day when my air conditioner broke to try to feed the worms and not heat up the bin, and was hoping that maybe some worms would have congregated around that, but looks like some babies, actually quite a good number of babies, kind of flocked right to it. So I'll leave this in here. I'm really looking to get out a lot of the adults. And I'm just not seeing the numbers I was hoping. Put these rags back down in here and move this for a second. So let's turn this bin up and see what it looks like in here. I'm going to pull some of these guys out right now because there's some of them in relatively large numbers around here. Bin is relatively compact. That's why I really want to at least do a partial harvest on this soon so that these guys will continue to reproduce, but it is encouraging that I'm seeing a lot of juvenile baby worms in here. Whoa, here we go. Okay, let me get repositioned here so we can see a little bit better. One of these days I actually will do what I say I'm going to do and get my camcorder set up instead of using my phone so that it can be on a tripod and I won't be shaking when I'm trying to move around. It's hard to do both jobs, flipping through the bin and holding the camera steady. Some of these worms are really nice size though. It's a little bit wet in the bottom, so turning this up is going to be good to help get the aeration all the way to the bottom to dry it out a little bit. It does feel a little bit too clayish at the bottom, which will make it difficult to harvest. But there are some relatively good numbers of worms here, so I'm going to flip through this, pull some more worms out, and then we will take a look. So I'm midway through this process, and this is very clayish. It's definitely too damp. So I'm gonna finish pulling out some worms, turning this up, and we're definitely gonna have to add some dry bedding and really mix it through this material because this is definitely not siftable material. Okay, so I cleared out a good amount of the castings and worms from here, although there's still a ton in here. But I don't want to add too much bedding, but I do need to do something to absorb some of this moisture in here because it's just not conducive to being sifted the way it is right now. So I'm going to mix in a little bit of this bedding, just some shredded cardboard that's completely dry. And what I'm going to do is come in here every couple of days and turn this bin up real well and not feed it. Let them kind of reprocess whatever's in here. Worms can go quite a while without food, especially if they have enough bedding to work through, and they'll be just fine. So I just mix this in fairly well. You still see a lot of worms in here. But I think with that added bedding, and I'm going to leave the lid off at least for a day, and then I will come through again, that this might help dry this bin out and make it a little bit more flaky and easy to harvest. So that is what we are left with at this point. And here's our small 3-gallon. And this just has loads of worms in it. And I will let these guys finish what is in here. And then I'm going to have to think about housing these guys in a larger bin while also taking into account the fact that letting the bedding get as deep as I did in this bin here, it's just too much. It's not able to get enough aeration in the bottom. So I need to come up with a better solution. Maybe that will be using a mortar tray. I'm not really sure just yet, but I'm gonna let this go for another week or two. I'm gonna keep pulling out a few worms as I see them here, and then we will take it from there. So the bait methods sort of kind of worked, but not really. Probably wasn't helpful that it wasn't particularly enticing foods for the worms. I really should have used something like banana, things that they really like. But you know, we'll try to perfect that method, but first I want to get this bin processed in such a way that we can easily sift what we have, or even if we don't sift, that we can at least pull out the castings and just throw them on the garden. It's definitely not required to sift your castings. I mean, the plants don't care if they're sifted, so you know, you just do the best you can, and sometimes it gets a little too compact the way this did, but you can still usually make it work. So anyway, I'm rambling. Let me know what you think. Any suggestions for drawing this out a little bit more? I would love to hear them, and I will talk to you guys soon for an update.